What's up guys and welcome back to On the Brick, where today I'm going to be looking at all the UCS sets and ranking them. At the time of making this video, there are currently 34 UCS sets out, and I'm going to be ranking them from what I personally think is the worst to what I personally think is the best. I'm also going exclusively off of the list provided by Brickset. While there are certainly other sets that people think are UCS, like, for instance, the Republic Dropship and AT-OT, it's not. This also means that things like the Porg or even BB-8 are excluded because they're just not UCS sets. Please do keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and if yours differs, please let me know how in the comments down below. So, in the 34th spot, or what is considered the worst UCS set in my opinion, is easily Assault on Hoth. This is a set I didn't even want to include on the list because it should not be considered UCS. And M&R actually made a video defending this and talking about how it could have worked. Unfortunately, in reality, this thing was a failure on multiple fronts and should never have been included in the UCS line. It did so poorly, LEGO actually had to create a new line for these kinds of sets. Tons of other people have talked about why this set sucks, so we're just going to move on to number 33. Set number 7191, the X-Wing Starfighter. This was the second ever UCS set to be released back in 2000. It originally cost $150 and had exactly 1,300 pieces. And while you might think it doesn't look bad, it also doesn't necessarily look great, especially with the newer version we'll see later on. It's like a hodgepodge of mixed colors that don't really make too much sense. There's a lot of red and even some green for some reason. At the time it was fine, but we've seen much better since then. In a similar vein, in the 32nd spot is 7181, the Thai Interceptor. This was the very first UCS set ever released, again back in 2000, for exactly $100. It's one of these smaller UCS sets at only 703 pieces, but the big downsides are that Thai Interceptors are not blue, they are very obviously black, and it was just an incredibly boring build to do. While I certainly hope they don't, because there's so many other sets we should get, if they took a second shot at this now, I bet it would be a lot better. And in the 31st spot, we actually have a very similar set, 10175, Vader's Thai Advanced. This set was originally released in 2006, also for $100, but it contained 1,212 pieces. The colors on this one are far more correct, but the front of this just doesn't really look good. It's really janky in places, and again, it was quite a boring build. This is one of the few UCS sets that I just stopped building and then had to come back to like a week later to finish it. I don't have much else to say about it, so we're going to move on to number 30, which is probably going to be a little controversial. In the 30th spot is 75059, the Sandcrawler. I actually wanted to put this last on the list because I hate this set that much. It is the one and only UCS set that I ever sold. It originally released in 2014 for $300 and contained 3,269 pieces. It took me about 3 days to build this thing and 3 very boring days. It's just brown. It's all brown on the outside, on the inside, and it's extremely repetitive. You spend an entire section building one side just to do a mirrored section for the other side. And then once you go and finish it all, it just doesn't look great. There's a lot of holes, a lot of studs, and it just really did not look good at all, and there wasn't even a plaque to go with it, so I just got rid of it. Moving on into the 20s, at number 29 is 10186, General Grievous. Yeah, that's how much I hate the Sandcrawler. This set was released in 2008 for $90, though I actually remember getting it for $75, so I don't know where the $90 price comes from. It contains 1,085 pieces and was definitely a unique set. This is one of LEGO's first attempts at making a buildable figure, at least for Star Wars, and they didn't really get it quite right. I mean, they still haven't. Grievous here only really half looked the part. It was pretty flimsy, it broke apart very easily actually, and the display plaque doesn't even say anything outside of Grievous. He's not posable, he just stands there. It was a decent attempt, but just not very great, all things considered. In the 28th spot, we have what I consider to be a better attempt at that, 7194 Yoda. This is actually one of the few UCS sets I don't own. It was released in 2002 for $100 and contained 1,075 pieces, and boy do I wish I had this set. I do have the newer, not UCS Yoda, but I've always admired how this one looks. And yeah, I mean, it looks really, really weird and it's not great. It's very blocky and the instructions are from like a top-down view. So even though I really want this, I did have to put it lower on the list because ultimately it is just a little weird. For number 27 and 26, we're going to do a 2-in-1 here because it's both Death Star playsets. And sorry, but that's what they are. They are playsets. These are exactly the same set with some minor differences. The newer version, of course, cost more and did have some improvements. I actually was able to get the newer version of the Death Star for free, built it over the course of a few days, and instantly disliked it. It was cool having all the minifigures and whatnot, but it just didn't look good, so I ended up donating it to a local secondhand Lego shop. And with that said, in the 25th spot is 10018 Darth Maul. Look, when I was putting this list together, I said that I would prefer this over the Death Stars as it's at least actually meant to be a display piece. Now, this released in 2001 for $150 and contained 1,868 pieces, and I also actually really do want this. A lot of people really hate this set, but again, personally, I actually really do like it. However, it is very, very blocky as well. It does have the top-down view in the instructions. Some of it just doesn't work as well as it should, and it's just so creepy. The big killer, though, are the top-down instructions. Just like with Yoda, it makes building a set like this so difficult. Now, in 24th place is 10129, the Rebel Snowspeeder. This was the first version released back in 2003 for $130, and it contained 1,457 pieces. This is another one of the sets that I don't own. And that's thanks to the newer version. When this came out, I actually did want it, but looking back again, it's very blocky, the front is way too wide, the cockpit is extremely weird, but the colors are accurate. It does look like the Snowspeeder. Overall, we're starting to get into that territory where these sets do actually look pretty good. And with that, we're going to go on to number 23, Ewok Village. This set released in 2013 for $250 and contained 1,990 pieces, including 17 minifigures. Unlike the Death Star, this still manages to be a good display piece because it still looks like what it needs to. It's not just an open ball. This is a set I was unfortunately never quite able to get my hands on, but hopefully one day soon. However, the reason I never got it is because it is a display set and there were just so many other sets that I much preferred to get that looked better, that did more, or were even cheaper. I know some people have this much higher on their list, but in case you didn't notice, I'm just not a fan of the playsets at all. And to show you that, in the 22nd spot is 10026, the special edition Naboo Starfighter. This was by far the cheapest UCS set ever released. It came out in 2002 for only $40. But it's also the smallest set ever released at only 187 pieces. And for that reason alone, it's pretty far down on this list. I think UCS sets should have a minimum of like 500 pieces, maybe 1,000 pieces or something. But 187 is just way too low. However, the reason this isn't lower on the list is because it does come with those chrome parts that just look so wonderful. I kind of hope they remake this one day at a much bigger scale. UCS have definitely gone that way of being bigger than and being able to show off more details, something that this set just was not able to do. So moving on into the 21st spot is 75095, the Thai Fighter. This is the last UCS Thai Fighter that they have made so far. It released in 2015 for $200 and contained 1,685 pieces. Obviously, LEGO prices have changed a bit, but that's still about $50 more expensive than it realistically should be, especially considering there wasn't really anything too special in this. It's another TIE fighter, it does look better than the other ones, it's more accurate, The center of it is still really blocky looking back on it though. And while the wings were really repetitive, I actually really like how this looks. It's currently sitting next to my Slave 1, which we'll see later on in this list, and that's why it's here, right around the middle area. It's not great, but it's not bad. Moving into the top 20 is a set that people might be surprised to see is this low. 10179, the original Ultimate Collector's Millennium Falcon. This released in 2007 and was the biggest LEGO set at its time. It sold for $500 and contained 5,197 pieces. I actually don't own this set, but I have seen it in person, and while it was absolutely amazing at the time, now all these years later, there's some things that just don't hold up. The cockpit is a little weird, there's way too many studs exposed, and honestly, the newer version just blew this one out of the water. And for me, this is the point of the list where all the sets tend to be pretty good, with just minor differences making them better, at least until we get to the top 5. At number 19 is a set people would probably put lower than the Falcon, 10030, the original Imperial Star Destroyer. This released in 2002 for $270 and contained 3,096 pieces. I actually finally do own this. You've seen it in the back of a lot of my videos, and it does have some pretty big problems. The front of it slacks a lot, and it's just not really that great of a build, but the final design still looks awesome, and I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of nostalgia with this particular set. It was the first UCS set that I ever saw, and I spent years, like 2 decades, wanting to buy it. If I was making an unbiased video, this would definitely be one of the worst sets, but we're talking about my opinion here. And in spot 18 is 10221, the Super Star Destroyer. This was released in 2011, and it contained 3,152 pieces, selling for $400. One of the reasons that this set is so far down on the list is because despite it looking really good, that's just so expensive. I understand that it comes with all these giant plates, but it's $100 more than it should be. However, I personally love the final design. It's over 4 feet long and even comes with a 2-scale Star Destroyer. It also came with 5 minifigures, but it does have this weird play area that, well, if you're displaying this, you're just never gonna open. However, it is also kind of pretty bland at the end of the day, so again, we're in that area where it's not great, but it's not also bad. Now, pricing is actually pretty important to me when it comes to things on this list, which is why in spot number 17 is 75252, the new Imperial Star Destroyer. This released in 2019, containing 4,784 pieces and an abysmally high $700 retail price. And while I know that this comes with even more giant plates than the last one and has a lot more technical structure on the inside, making sure it doesn't sag and hold together, that's just stupid. That is such a stupid price. I know a lot of people wanted this to sell for $500, which I think would not be doable, but $550, $600 would have been better. I still wouldn't have liked it, but $700 has just made me never want to waste my money on this thing, however awesome it looks, however nice it is. And it does look great. I actually really enjoy and I really love how it looks. I'm just never going to spend that kind of money on this. But with that said, in spot number 16 is 75181, the new UCS Y-Wing Starfighter. This was released in 2018, selling for $200 and containing 1,967 pieces. What's always interesting about this set is that it is actually too expensive. This set was on shelves at the same time as the original run of the Saturn V. That set contained 1,969 pieces and sold for only $120. And that set had a lot of printed pieces to it, and also rather large and unique pieces as well. Yet somehow this Y-Wing, which has less pieces, was $80 more expensive. Now, like I said, this is actually the remake of the Y-Wing, and so why is this below the original? Well, I know this is based off of the model they used in A New Hope, but the problem that I have with it is the Y-Wing is actually my favorite ship. I love the history and everything about it, and this model just makes it look like the Y-Wing was always like this, that this was always what the Y-Wing was supposed to be, which, again, I get. They based it off of the model from the original movie before there was a backstory to the vehicle. But when this set was released, there was a backstory to the vehicle. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love how this thing looks, but the Y-Wing is a saved from scrap build with all the armor broken off of it. That's not what this looks like to me. So in spot 15, I put what is actually one of my favorite LEGO sets because of nostalgia mainly, the 10134 original Y-Wing Attack Starfighter. This set released in 2004 for $120 and contained 1,473 pieces. Now, this looks like a ship that had its armor stripped away and was barely being held together by a group of rebels against a mighty galactic empire. But I will also admit that it also looks a bit like a mess. However, that's kind of the point. When I was making this list, the last one and this one kept flip-flopping back and forth, and it probably will continue to do so, but for right now, I just had to put this one higher on the list because, well, I just like it more. At number 14 though is 75144, the new Snowspeeder. Yeah, this is yet another remake. However, it came out in 2017 and sold for $200, containing 1,703 pieces. There are really only two downsides to this set though. One, that it's a remake, and two, it is a little more expensive than it should be. However, most UCS sets at this point were selling for about $200. Now, I much prefer this to the original. It looks so much better, the proportions are better, the front isn't so wide, there's actually like play features with it, it comes with 2 minifigures, the cockpit looks nice, it's just overall a much better set than the original version. But due to being a remake and with so many other sets still not yet made, I couldn't put it any higher on this list. Now, in spot 13 is 10174, the Imperial Atst. This released in 2006 for a low $80 and contained 1,068 pieces. Now, that's a little weird because this set also has a bunch of big plates and unique parts, yet it was cheaper than it should be. Ain't that interesting? Actually, I really do like this set though. It was one of the first that I ever bought. It's completely capable of standing on its own. You can also move the head and rotate the guns. There is even a plaque with it. Now, there's not much posability, which is totally fine, but still, at the end of the day, I did really enjoy this. In spot number 12 is 10225 R2D2. Quick fun fact, this was the only UCS set that I did not buy online or from LEGO. I actually got it at Barnes & Noble. However, it released in 2012 for $180 and contained 2,127 pieces. This was a great build. It took longer than I thought it would. I just loved how it all came together. It's pretty smooth minus the head, which is admittedly a little blocky. But there are different things that you can open up. You can lower the third leg if you want to, or have it retracted. The head does spin around. Overall, this was a much better improvement to the Yoda and Darth Maul that came before it. And I actually don't own the new R2D2 quite yet, but I'm sure it improves on this. Now, in number 11 is 10215 Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter. Yeah, kind of surprising to be this high on the list. However, released in 2010, and it sold for $100, containing only 676 pieces. But personally, I just really love this. I love how smooth it is, I love how sleek it is, I love the giant R4 head. It looks really awesome, and it is pretty small though, which is why it didn't quite eke into the top 10, but still I love having this thing on display. And here we finally are at the top 10. These are my favorite UCS sets and really are all just that good. And at number 10, again, is a surprising entry, 10019, the Rebel Blockade Runner. Okay, this is probably not going to be very high on most people's lists. It released in 2001 for $200 and contained 1,747 pieces. But this is a huge build. It is surprisingly very large. And even though there are newer versions of this out there, it still holds up. I actually got this and built it straight in a matter of 12 hours. I only stopped to eat. It's a great display set and does come with a little plaque as well, and one that I just highly enjoy. And in 9th place is 10240, the Red 5 X-Wing Starfighter. This released in 2013 for $200 and contained 1,559 pieces. While it is a remake, it's probably one of the only ones that was actually needed. There are so many improvements over the original X-Wing. There's no random colors anymore. There's no green anywhere. The front of this thing actually looks nice. You can raise and lower the wings. There's even the actual 5 marks for why this is called Red 5, by the way. The guns on the end of the wings look nice. Overall, this is just a much better set and what an X-Wing should have been. And in the 8th spot is 75309, the Republic Gunship. A lot of people don't really like this set for some reason, but I think it's perfectly fine. It's actually a really good set. So many people are complaining that it's too big and not minifig scale, but yeah, of course it's not minifig scale. Why would it be? UCS sets don't always have to be that. A minifig scale gunship would be incredibly tiny. I would know. I've built them and reviewed them for you guys. But this is supposed to be a display piece showing off all the details and everything, and I think it does that perfectly. Yes, the minifigures suck, but I got this for the vehicle, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. There are just better sets out there. Like in the 7th spot, 10227, the B-Wing Starfighter. This released in 2012 and sold for $200, containing 1,487 pieces. Now, what is a little weird is this actually released in the same year as that R2-D2. It had 700 less pieces, but was $80 more expensive. However, a lot of those pieces are, again, bigger plates, more unique pieces. And this thing is way bigger than you would ever think it would be. Despite its low piece count, it actually took me 2 days to put together. It looks so smooth, it looks so awesome, and I just absolutely love this. And in spot number 6 is the very first UCS set that I ever owned, 10143, the Death Star 2. This set released in 2005 and sold for $270, though I very distinctly remember it costing me over $300, and it contained 3,441 pieces. This set is massive and it makes a perfect display piece. Sure, there's not like super details or anything, but everyone who's ever seen this has been incredibly impressed by it. Again, if for any reason they were to redo it, I think it would look so much better now. But I'm so happy with what we got back then. I actually don't think it needs to be improved, except for some stability issues probably. Because, you know, right after building it, my mom actually knocked this over and I had to spend about a week and a half rebuilding it. It wasn't her fault. It was a total accident. But again, it's so big and I just love this a lot. However, let's look at the top 5 UCS sets in my opinion. These are the best of the best. And in the 5th spot is the new 75313 AT-AT. This set just released in 2021. It released for $800 and contained 6,785 pieces. Again though, this does have a lot of huge plates, there's even an interior, and the fact that they were able to make this thing at all is quite astonishing. While this is super expensive, it's a much better price than the stupid Star Destroyer from earlier. Sorry, I will just never get over that. Because unlike that set, there's actual posability here, there's a whole ton of minifigures, there's even an interior which I personally will never have on display, but a lot of people love having it there. And even though I won't have it on display, if I ever have anyone over, I can open this up and be like, hey, look at what's inside of this, look how cool it is. It's also pretty close to minifig scale, which is something that I personally do enjoy when it makes the sets bigger and also more accurate. Oh hey, I completely forgot about the A-Wing Starfighter. It's definitely not in my top 5 here. It's not bad, but I would probably put this maybe around 17 or 18. So just pretend I put this there and bump everything else up. This released in 2020 for $200 and contains 1,673 pieces. While it's a nice set, it's a little clunky and there are way too many stickers for this thing. Again, not great, not bad, but we'll move back to the really nice things. Because in the third spot, the third best UCS set ever released in my opinion is 75060, the Slave One. This set released in 2015 for $200 and contained 1,996 pieces. I just love this set so much. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. The colors are absolutely wonderful. It's minifig scale too. It's still a pretty big piece. The only thing is the cockpit only has room for one person instead of two, but that's honestly a pretty easy fix if you want to. And you know what's really interesting is that even though I've been talking about all those sets that contain like the big plates and everything, this has a lot of not only unique pieces, but unique pieces in unique colors, and it was still an appropriate price. Kind of makes me wonder if LEGO's just, as the English would say, taking the piss and just pricing things higher because they know people will buy it. Now, the Slave One can actually be rotated from like landing position to flying position. There's also the weapons on the side that can open up. You can put Jango inside and Boba inside, and the Boba looks wonderful as well. Like I said, overall, a pretty perfect set. But there are two better, and in second place is 75192, the elusive Millennium Falcon. Well, not so elusive anymore, but it was when this came out. I worked at the LEGO set when this came out, and I was actually able to get it for half off, which is a huge reason as to why I have it, because I was literally able to get it for $400. Oh wait, this set released in 2017, retailing for $800, the most expensive LEGO set at the time, and was again the biggest LEGO set at the time, containing 7,541 pieces. It came with 7 minifigures, BB-8, 2 Porgs, and the Minok, I believe it was called. It is huge. This thing is so big. It is such an improvement on the original version. And while there are still a bunch of exposed studs, it just looks better in my opinion. They really improved how this thing comes together. The cockpit is so much nicer. That little walkway looks good. The turrets are awesome. And there are actually interior sections as well. I love showing those when people come over, opening it up and having like Finn and Rey in there, or like all the original characters are in the cockpit of mine actually. And I like those interior areas because they're not plays areas. They are definitely meant for display because of their sizes and everything. A lot of love went into designing and making this set, and I just absolutely am so happy to have this thing. You can switch out if you want this to be the original trilogy Falcon or the new trilogy Falcon. You can do whatever you want with this thing, and it is so perfect, except there is one set better. M&R, if you've been sticking around, you probably know what it is. Because for me, in my opinion, the single best UCS set ever released is 10212, the Imperial Shuttle. This set released in 2012, containing 2,503 pieces and sold for $260. There were even 5 minifigures, 3 which were unique to this set. And it's perfect. That's the end of the story. It is perfect. It is minifig scale, first of all. It just looks amazing. It actually functions. You can raise and lower the wings, or put it on landing gear if you really wanted to. It's also pretty big. It takes up over half of my computer desk, and for me personally, my favorite thing is that it's entirely smooth. There are very few studs exposed on this thing, and it just looks amazing overall. I was so happy when I was finally able to pick this thing up and put it together, because seriously, when I say this is perfect, I mean perfect. Back when there were rumors of this set being remade in a UCS form as well, M&R made a video talking about how they would improve it, and he kept saying how this was perfect and there's not really a way to do that, and I agree. And while I'm sure there would actually be ways to make a new one better, for me, this is the best of the best. But I would love to know what your list is. What set do you think is the best UCS sets? And I bet I'm going to get a bunch of AT-ATs down there. Remember to hit that like or dislike button if you agree or disagree. Subscribe if you would like to see more. And if you haven't already, consider checking me out on Instagram, Discord, and of course on Patreon, which again is gonna get revamped come the new year, but you could get shoutouts like Project Elements and Jonathan. Thank you all so much for watching what is probably the last Friday video, and I'll see you next time.